What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now, if you want to stay up to date with all my latest videos, just click that subscribe button below, as it really helps to support the show. If you're new to the show, I interview guests from a spiritual perspective, covering mainstream and alternative subjects. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Les Jensen, and we're going to discuss his book, Citizen King. So, Les Jensen, thank you for joining us.
It's so glad to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, so we previously had you on for your last interview, which was Forgiven Sinner. And I was just speaking off air with you. Now, this book, Citizen Kane. I've got the movie on my head, haven't I? Citizen King, The New Age of Power. This book was already written when I'd already interviewed you before. Now, you've re-released this book, not with any updates in it, but just to get it out there, basically.
That's correct.
Yes. Why did you feel the need to push a book that's already been written before? Why are you back on to do that?
Well, I think it's very appropriate for the times. 2020 kind of turned everybody's life on its head. And this book is a great book to get back on focus, back on track with your life. And many, many people are looking to do just that. So I decided to launch a new campaign with it so people could get some resources to help them through difficult times.
So let's just get straight into it then. What is this book all about?
Well, when I got cracked open, there's so much about my life that I had no clue about. I have this soul. The soul has a vision of my life. I have the passion of my heart. And I had pretty much been ignoring those two things. So this book is, it teaches your ego how much your ego would enjoy having a higher perspective, a higher wisdom in your life, and not to be afraid of the passion of your heart, if that makes sense. Before I got cracked open, I had a very static view of my life. I work in broadcast television. And I'm a father, I'm a dad. That's it, end of story. And I kind of have that monologue kind of mentality about myself. And then I get cracked open, and now my heart and my soul want my life to expand. So now I'm writing books. I'm a radio show host. It constantly introduces me to new possibilities for my future. And I would not have even been able to recognize that before. And that's what this book is about. How to teach your ego to just take a chill pill and listen and tune in. And over time, it's really it's a wonderful way to live life. Once you've tasted the fruit of that higher wisdom and learned how not to be afraid of the passion of your heart, your life dynamic changes in a very good way.
Okay, and then the book that we spoke about before, because obviously I cannot remember anything of what we spoke about before because so much has happened in my life. But what, very quickly, just let's be quick about it. What was the
Sure.
synopsis of The Forgiven Sinner then?
Well, Forgiven Sinner is a look at the notion of God and what role will God play in changing humanity? I mean, basically, 1 billion prayers have been prayed to God saying, come and end the suffering, and no God has appeared. So it's basically showing you that your life purpose, no matter if you have tattoos, ride a Harley, and pound whiskey, no matter what your life is, there's an element of it that's part of the transformation of our human condition.
How do I sum that up? That I understand what you said there. I think what you're saying. Hang on. I think what you're saying there is if you're riding a Harley and drinking whiskey, that is what you're supposed. This transformation that you just spoke about there. Then what transformation? What are you on about there then?
Well, a lot of times religious contexts they have this template, this white picket fence of how you're supposed to behave to find favor with the divine. But through my observation of the divine is not going to reach over our shoulder and grab the steering wheel and correct the narrative of our human story. It's not going to happen that way. It's going to be through the human individual. And so Forgiven Sinner is a book to show you that your own authenticity, and that's why I use tattoo, Harley, whiskey, to be authentic to yourself is the template. Your enlightened self and your authentic self are the same damn self.
Oh, right. Okay, so you're talking about being yourself there, yeah. But then, if you're not giving two shits about yourself or others, how is that being enlightened then? Or how is that in alignment with your book, shall I say?
My book won't be attracted to those kinds of people. My book will be attracted to people who are waking up and who have a role. I suggest people are going to have epiphanies of what they can do in their life, like totally change education, totally change. I mean, totally from the ground up, economics, business, government. And they're not going to feel per se empowered. Our egos kind of suck at making a hard left or a hard right turn. And we're hard. Our soul saw all this coming and chose a role for us. And so Forgiven Sinner and Citizen King are books that help you empower your ego to show up for your life purpose, to show up for the passion of your heart, to fulfill the vision of your soul.
Okay, well, I know that we got into it on the last interview that we did, Forgiven Sinner, and I'll put the link below in the description below as well. I'm not following you completely right now, but I know that in that interview we went into depth about what we're talking about right now. Do you know what I mean? And
We did.
There is no time in my life, unfortunately, right now to have watched that interview at all because I'm just going through immigration myself. If anyone's wondering what's going on with me right now, so every moment's taken away from me that's available. But I still try to make time for this, so let's just go into Citizen King, the New Age of Power again. So this is all about. I'm looking over this way because I've got some notes this way because of my That's anyway. So yeah, Citizen King. Okay, as you can see, I'm not in any understanding of what we're on about here right now, but I will be. So this is about purpose. This is about finding your purpose. Is that what Citizen King's about?
Absolutely, but it has other components. For example, monolithic systems in our society, like a single currency, a single education system. What we're seeing now in 2020 is really a clash of belief systems. The old idea of the king on the hill will decide for the masses. The king on the hill is the authority. The king on the hill is the supreme ruler of the land. Citizen King, my book, is not about that at all. The power, the dominion of the king on the hill moves down and into the heart of everyday citizens. So I think the model of a healthy dynamic for humanity is, I mean, it's really a timeless story. The sovereignty of the persona, the sovereignty of the citizen, we have an unalienable right. So Citizen King, it teaches your ego to trust when your heart and your soul show you a new vector, a new direction for your life. Many, many times for myself, when my heart first told me to write a book, I argued with my heart for years before I actually wrote a book. And now writing a book, I thoroughly enjoy writing books. But I never would have had that experience had my ego not learned how to get the hell out of the way. So Citizen King is teaching your ego how much your ego would enjoy your life if you actually showed up for the inspiration of your heart and your soul.
Yeah. Okay. And how would you sum up the ego then? What would you say that is? I mean, can we do that in just a few words? Do we have to be here for like ages just to try to figure that? I know, because I have lots of people on that. I've got so much in-depth stuff to say about it. It's like, come on, let's just get to the point. What is it?
Well, the ego is the lowest common denominator. It can consume 100% of your consciousness, staring at your phone, going through social media, pinching out your heart and your soul. Or your ego can step back and let the vision of your life take the front seat.
Okay, that's not answer. Okay, I don't get that answer. I'm going to stop you there, right? I'm going to be difficult. What is the ego? Is the ego
black and white? I got it. Your sense of self, who you think you are, what you believe, what you value, your expectations, your attitudes. That's your ego.
And we are that ego because of having this human experience. So if we try to put ourselves in a place where before we incarnate, if we do incarnate, if this is all what really happens, right? But if we go before that, then pre-ego is just this all-knowing, everything, all wonderful, everything's fantastic, I'm having a great day kind of presence.
Well, the day you were born, you didn't have an ego. None of us did.
Yeah, but is that because we came here from somewhere else? Is that what you're saying? We as a soul, is the soul, is that the presence of minus the ego? Is that what we're saying? Soul, no ego.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So your soul is the source of the consciousness that runs the ego. Without a soul, there is no ego. So in other words, your ego has no consciousness of its own. It's through the consciousness of your soul that your ego is formed on top of.
Yeah. But we can't help that though, can we? Because if we're going to have a soul that's going to play peekaboo and numb itself off from everything that it is, to have this experience so we forget who we are totally, right? We have no remembrance of that, only sparks of, well, maybe it's true, maybe that feels right when we get to this age where we start thinking about these things, right? How can we be so cruel to say that, well, that ego, it can just, piss off, can't it? Do you know what I mean? And it's all the problem. But it's just a natural reaction of having this experience with something that's purposely not wanting to let us know that it's there in the first place. Our soul's not wanting to let us know that it actually truly is there. It's left us, in a sense, the remembrance of it to get on with this.
The ego is not the villain. I don't want to portray the ego as some kind of horrid thing. It's not. It can totally tank your life. But so what I'm getting from your questions is the relationship of our soul that seems to be hidden behind the veil, hidden kind of out of the picture. Is that?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's gone, hasn't it? I mean, it's
Right, I
Yeah.
understand. And I spent the first 35 years of my life in that perspective. And then the cosmic 2x4 cracks me open, and I realize my soul is this very rich aspect of myself. And I promise you, this did not come overnight. I've been working on my persona 25 years. Today, my soul, I feel a presence of my soul that is, and I get the notion of a very deep sense of peace within my being that anchors me in peace no matter how chaotic the world gets. I didn't have that at all until I reconnected with my soul.
Yeah, but does it have to be okay? So you reconnect with your soul, and you're saying then that therefore you're then pulling away this thing called the ego that's been with you since you became conscious in this realm, that has built everything that identified you up to this point right now.
Sure.
Why do we want to pull that all off? I mean,
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do a damn thing. It's your game, it's your ball. But if the ego's holding all your reins, I suggest to you, you're going to operate at a fraction, a very small fraction of the potential of what you could live out in this lifetime. The ego is going to make choices that are based on experiences from the past. So, in other words, it's going to look at the past and look at what worked in the past and make choices to ensure a continuity of experience. That mindset sucks for bringing a drastic change into your life. And I don't want to, drastic sounds perilous, and that might be too harsh of a word, but looking at my life, my heart, my soul have a presence in my everyday life. Like I'm getting inspired to write another book, and I'm excited about that. That inspiration didn't come from my ego, I promise. But my ego recognizes that if I honor the inspiration to write that book, my ego will feel fantastic. And once you've tasted the fruit of how your ego feels, when it steps back and lets your heart and your soul guide you through your life, once you've tasted that fruit, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back at all. If my ego has some petty little perspective, good for it. But I want to do the big stuff. I want to tune in and really get focused and accurate about why the hell I'm here, and to fulfill that in a fun, authentic. I'm so excited for my life, and I never lived in such excitement when my ego was running the boat, because it knew what was going to happen, because it made all the safe choices.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk to carry on from there. Really, um, it's like separate in this community when we talk about the ego. It's like separating something from your true self, as we call it, to what could be, and it's like, oh. Is that really happening? I wonder. And have we got it wrong that that's even the understanding of it? That actually, it's not about this ego versus the true nature of who we are. It's something else. Maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. It doesn't feel like work having to do this. It just feels.
It shouldn't feel like it's not like your soul's telling you get on the treadmill and run, damn it, run. It's not that at all. It's not a forced thing. When you're in step with your heart and your soul, there's a sense of grace that comes in your life. Like if you look at the wake of the ego, go to social media and look at all the bickering. That's all ego chatter. That's the clash of ego belief systems. But our souls have a much more compassionate view, authentic views, supportive view of what our future can be. But if our heart and our soul can't get any sway in our life, we're going to overdose on ego and tread water for more and more years.
maybe, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, maybe what you're explaining of this whole idea, and many authors have talked about this idea of the, of letting the ego go and letting the soul come in more. But maybe it's just actually nothing to do with that, and it's actually maybe just being kinder to yourself. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could go along with you and say, yeah, Les, that's great. Yeah. Tell me more. And it's like, I don't know so much right now in my life. I don't know. I just don't know.
In our last conversation, we had quite a conversation about emotions and how emotions can kind of paralyze us into the same kind of a story or narrative over and over and over again. For example, someone might say, I've married the same type of person 3 times and they all turned out to be jerks. Well, it's not about them. It's about it's about our unresolved self. And I'm not saying that, okay, I'm going to decide to follow my soul and all my worries are gone and I have happy pills and woohoo, fun. I'm not saying that whatsoever. Planet Earth is a karmic tsunami. This is a very difficult place to navigate. And there's so many narratives out there that don't honor us whatsoever. That's pretty easy to see. And there's kind of a tug of war over who's right and who's wrong. I'm not saying this stuff is easy, but I tell you, 25 years down this road, I'm not going back for anything. I don't care what it is. I don't want to ever ignore the inspiration of my heart, my soul again. And so I want to share this with everybody who resonates with it. And if you don't resonate, stay away. I'm not here. Nothing. I don't require anything from anybody. Believe whatever you want forever. Do whatever you want forever. I'm not telling you what to do or what to believe. I'm telling you that there's this gigantic visionary wisdom in your psyche, and the passion of your heart can scare the crap out of your ego. And if you don't get those 2 straightened out, and you don't have to by any means whatsoever, but if you do straighten those out, you'll live a most exceptional life. And that's where I want to live my life.
Now, let me ask you from this perspective.
Sure.
If following what you're talking about, then you're talking about having and becoming more authentic to doing the things in your life that you're listening to, that deeper part of your soul, I'll call it, right? That's calling you to whatever it is in your life that you may be more happy to do, more passionate to do in whatever areas in your life.
Sure, indeed. And you got to get some mileage with this for it to make any sense. I totally understand. If I went back to my 20s and 30s and I heard this, I would say, yeah, right. I don't have the time to do that. I don't want to do that. I got my own life. My life's finally working out. Why would I want to bugger with it? And in hindsight, I'll say this for the rest of my life. I was asleep at the wheel. I was choosing.
What would you have done? What you've done different? What? Just name a few things that you would have done different that you can't change now, but you can talk about.
What would I have done different in my past? I wouldn't have a monolithic view of my life. I'm a TV engineer, and that is the container which I'm held in. I wouldn't have had that mindset. Because now I'm a TV engineer, I'm a radio show host, I'm an author, I'm a visionary. I'm very passionate for compassion for humanity, and on the emotional sense, I wish to God I would have understood that when I came home from work and I feel wiped out, even though I didn't do a lot of physical activity, that's emotional baggage getting stirred up. I'd walk in my house and plop my ass down on the couch and channel surf for an hour and a half, waiting for myself to settle back down. I wish to hell I would have realized that that's an example that I'm loaded up to the hilt of unresolved emotions, and I'm just sitting there trying to navigate through it. Man, talk about a quagmire. So my life would be different in many ways.
Do you want to name one? What choices would you name a choice that you would have done different? I know it's too late for that now. That would have been something that you would say to yourself, "Shit, I would have done that different if I known what I know now," and that you think would have.
Sure.
Or is that a terrible question? Because obviously we can't change the past, but I mean, you were just not there to even.
I wasn't even aware there
Yeah.
was a better aspect. Here's a really simple thing that I could have done. Post-it notes. Get a whole bunch of Post-it notes. For example, for me to write a book, my ego argued for 6 years to actually get the book written. And I could have collapsed that much faster. So get Post-it notes, put them by the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the car, and your mind will be busy doing something else. You're unloading the groceries, and a single sentence will pop in your head. Write that book. And what I was doing is I'd take that sentence and take it up in my head and say, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I'm from a small town in Utah. What the hell? And I would beat the crap out of the inspiration from my heart. But if you take that inspiration and write it down, it's there in 5 minutes. It's there tomorrow. It's there next week. But if you don't write it down, you'll beat the crap out of it and it'll be gone.
Yeah. But, would you say you're more devoid of your ego right now? Is it how much percentage is it out the way now? 2% out the way, 3%?
I'm sure I have a lot more to work on. But if you want numbers, I was probably 99% ego, and maybe I'm 35-30, but I'm working on it every damn day.
35-30. Yeah. So, and if it wasn't there, would you be making choices that actually were not beneficial for you?
I don't think it'd be possible. I think the scoundrel that keeps tipping my card over is my ego, my heart, my soul. Sometimes you have the cosmic 2x4. You lose your job, you get in an accident,
yes,
and
that happens.
And then you hear about people where that was the transformation of their life. Well, in the moment that happened, it seems like a horrible thing to the ego, but the consequence of it's basically giving you a wake-up call, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. No, I get that. Maybe that's not the death of the ego. Maybe that's just the death of or the reduction of yeah, just the just the importance that you think that everything that you thought was important is not as important as you thought it was.
Nice.
Yeah, but
spoken.
But I could have said, well, that's the ego, and then people would have been like, yeah, that's the ego. But I'm trying not to say that. I don't want to say that because I don't know if it is. I don't know if there is such a thing as an ego. I mean, yes, other people watching this may say, what a prick. He knows nothing, but I don't. How do I know? Do you know what I mean? I don't remember signing a contract to say, look, you're going to have an ego, you're going to have this, you're going to do that. These are just human words that this spiritual community has made up.
I don't want to beat up any egos. I don't want any egos to feel bad about themselves. I'm not here to bash egos.
Yeah.
Egos do the best they can. It's quite obvious there's a ton of egos that are scared to death. The egos are very afraid of what's happening in the collective story, in the collective narrative. And I have very much compassion for those people.
Well, do you think that's an ego, or do you think that's just because they're not able just to consider that they may be more than their body? And if they were, did they come from somewhere where they were just more loving to themselves and others in that space, and they could be that person or that energy now? Is that all it is? Just to, that they don't want to consider that they are, more than this?
Well, your soul doesn't have if you're incarnate here on earth and you're listening to this radio show, your soul saw the dynamic of what's going to play out in this lifetime. And it's one hell of a ride as far as the narrative of humanity over the centuries. And when you incarnate and the veil wipes away any knowledge of any of this, I had no flipping clue whatsoever of the notion of a soul as an active participant in my life.
Well, something made us, didn't it? Some choice that we saw, something that we knew at some level beyond our understanding, for made us want to come and do this. If that is the case, I mean, what was it? Netflix? I mean, no, I mean,
to have the experience. It's okay, Kevin. A calm sea cannot make a skilled sailor. It can't. If the sea is calm, you're not going to learn a flipping thing. And likewise, a torrential tsunami will make a skilled sailor, or the sailor will perish. Likewise, in order for a soul to master the art of being a human being on a planet, any planet, it takes on this duality. We come into physical form, and there's this world outside of us, and there's this sense of self inside of us. And I think if you can find compassion in your heart, and even though everything your eyes are telling you is that it's just this big shitstorm, if you can transcend what your eyes are telling you and connect with a very deep compassion for our human condition within your own psyche, you're a flippin' rock star. You're the sailor that can handle the storm. And if you're going through this classroom called planet Earth, this karmic classroom, this is probably some of the toughest classes you can take, because humanity has an immense amount of pressure against it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
So look at your family of origin. You want to understand your life a little better? Look at your family of origin, because your soul very carefully looked at what family dynamic you would incarnate into. And I'll put myself on the friar there. I was born into a very staunch religious household where God, the God up there, not the God in here, the God up there was pissy. If I piss off God, I would be cast into an ocean of fire for all eternity while my family goes to heaven. So I better toe the damn line. Now, when I look back at that, I've learned to challenge every damn thing I've ever been told ever.
No.
And yes. Oh my God, yes. And I fast forward to now, and what am I doing? I'm a spokesperson. I'm here to language the hidden aspects, like my show, New Human Living Radio. We're on our 11th year, hundreds of interviews.
Congrats.
The whole anchor of that, the show is this human potential. What's our hidden human potential, and how can we get a fulcrum on it? And I've lifted up every flipping rock there is. I've turned every corner, turned every page, and we haven't. The vast majority of us will accomplish less than 1% of our potential. And until we can come to terms, you don't have to do a damn thing. I'm not telling you to do a damn thing. But if you can recognize that there's a much bigger dynamic that could be playing out in your life, that one that you would enjoy, one that you would feel empowered, authentic, a sense of sovereignty and dominion, who wouldn't, I mean...
Okay, so how do we get that better part of us in this present moment? How do we pull what you're saying out from our life and bring it into reality then?
Weekend, like some magic seminar, there'd be droves and droves of enlightened people. It took you a journey to build up to where you are now. It's not going to go away like that. It's not. But if you look at everything I write about is to help you understand the dynamics or the mechanics of this human genome, this human persona. There's a man walking around on the planet intending to colonize Mars, and he's building the rockets to do it. If you look at his dynamic over 10 years, it's easily $10 trillion of commerce. So if you accomplish 0.001% of that, you'll kick all your friends' asses. Is that a wake-up call? I mean, we are not honoring our potential in the
and how do we listen? But how do we get it? How do we get to that point? I mean, you what you're saying in Citizen King is that, this is a book to help, take away some of those blockages, and also to see the potential of what could be if those blockages were taken away, and the potential of what we are and all that, right? But I mean, where do we start? I mean, you've heard it so many times. I don't know what my passion is, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm getting older now, and the years are ticking by. In 20 years, I'll be 60. Am I going to know it then?
All right. I hear you. You want bullet items for today. You want to kick your ass? Do 10 minutes of no thought meditation today. So I recommend not using a phone because you'll be interrupted with text and all that crap. Set a kitchen timer for 10 minutes and stop your thoughts. And what you're going to recognize is a whole shit ton of thoughts in your subconscious going, well, this is stupid. Les is full of crap. We're not getting anything done. That's the conundrum. It's that dogma in your psyche that you weren't aware of until you tried to stop it.
Okay, so, and the stopping of that, you would call that the ego, in a sense, the thinking mind, but the mind but that's the, I mean, so I need something to beat my heart and pump my blood. Do you know what I mean? And to
your
breathe.
Ego has no say in that. Your ego has no say at all.
That's good. That's good to know.
If it's up to your ego, you'd be dead a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I guess that's how much we think of ourselves as the ego mind, as it thinks when it looks in the mirror. Maybe it's you piece of shit,
Sure.
You ugly bastard, whatever it may be that we go through sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. But okay, so by having that time out and using that as a practical exercise just to show you how much thinking does go on, and you again going back to the ego, it's all called the ego, but with the minus of that and a continuation of a quieter mind even throughout the day, is that 10 minutes becomes 20 minutes, becomes an hour,
yes.
It becomes,
Yes.
Okay.
Bump it up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what space can we come from then? What is it that's, so what you're saying is our purest self, the soul, the thing that we were and always have been before we even came here, and that's somewhere out there right now, probably in some other undescribable reality, right? It wants to talk to us, and and we're here for a purpose, and that can come through a lot clearer. That's what you're saying.
Sure. So as you learn to create a space, if you're in silence, any thought that pops up is visible. But if you're in chatterbox mode, you can have, you might think your daily affirmations, my daily affirmations, I'm affirming that I'm going to have this and that and whatever. And the affirmation part of your vocabulary is a very small percentage, because the majority of the thoughts you have blow the crap out of it. Another value of being in that silence is, for example, maybe you're in a department head meeting and the boss walks in and you feel an emotion well up in you. When you feel that emotion well up in you, our relationship with our emotions are learned patterns. The emotions themselves have no mechanism of their own. They're a feeling, period. But our ego over time, especially once you've gotten into life a few decades, the emotion will come up and you're about a half a second away from this mental pattern coming in going, oh, I don't like this. Can we quit arguing? Would you shut up? And here comes the mental patterning to try to navigate the feeling and get it to subside without actually even processing it. And so that no thought meditation is an excellent canvas to start recognizing when you're being emotionally triggered through the day. If you can't recognize that through the day, you'll drop into reaction perhaps 100 times a day. And every time you drop into reaction, that wake of time after the reaction is lost. So collapse those by dealing with your emotions. And you can get, so you say you have a to-do list and you think it's going to take you 6 weeks. You operate from your soul and you'll get it done by noon.
Okay, and this is where you become the king, basically, in your reality.
Yes,
this is what the book's
citizen
about.
king.
Yeah.
And if we all, nothing is required, but if a majority of us connect with that, we will not be choosing narratives that take advantage of the human persona.
But then, what makes us so special to want to hear this message? Well, I mean, why wouldn't everyone want to hear this message?
Well, I don't know. Why wouldn't they?
Are we elitism?
Oh, hell no. It's like I said in Forgiven Sinner, billions of prayers have said, God, save us from this insanity. We're blowing each other up. We build a nuclear arsenal to end life on the planet. God, come save our asses. Crickets. God's not going to come like some glowing orb every single time. So the pharaohs got all these damn slaves, and the slaves pray, come save our ass. Every single time, flesh and bones. You need one of these to be a powerful effect in the human persona, because the big bastards up, the idea of the all-powerful God is not going to show up to do squat. So when you open up your heart and start having compassion for humanity, and your soul shows you a vision of how you can transform the lives of others, and then you step into that, nothing feels like that. That's such a rich feeling. At the end of the day, you have a very deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, even before you get to any finish line.
It's a lonely journey sometimes, isn't it? Because you feel sometimes like, even coming from that space, no one else is going to come from that space. The majority aren't, and they'll never feel the same way. They'll never have that experience of even thinking that way. They don't want to think that way.
There's a very big rise in the population. There's a ton of people waking up. There's millions of us that have tasted this fruit, and there's quite big communities online. It's not per se the lonely thing. Certainly in the 60s, the hippies, in the 50s, this would be a crickets kind of thing. If you were awoke in your community, you'd be the only one for 1,000 miles. But now today, chances are very good there's somebody awake within a few miles of your house. I think it's human consciousness is the next revolution.
Well, hopefully.
Yes.
Well, not even hopefully. Does it really matter? I don't know. I think it does, and it doesn't. I think sometimes if we're drawn to do this life purpose, that's going to help others. But is it about that? Okay, so we're talking about getting into our life purpose, coming from a better, coming from this space where something's talking to us, saying you got to do this, or we're not listening sometimes, right? Whatever that may be. But do you think do you think that the voice is different? It's different for all of us, isn't it? So
you bet, absolutely.
How do we can't judge what that purpose is. I mean, we're not all here to save, not to save, that's the wrong word, but we're not all here to
do the same thing.
Even to help awaken people. I mean, what is the point of, yeah, okay, so we get to this level and then we're getting into the purpose, but what purpose?
The when your soul has a vision for your life and then you show up for it, it might be to clean the cages at the zoo and read to children at the library. It's not always about being some kind of, and please, I promise you my shit stinks. I spell accuracy with a backspace. I'm not elevating the idea of this as a better than anything. The homeless person at the corner whose life is in despair is taking one of the toughest classes you could possibly have. That's a very advanced soul who has completely forgotten who they are. So you don't have to do anything, but I suggest to you, if you want to have the most exceptional life, get clarity about your life purpose and then take action on it, no matter what that is. And once you get some footage, once you get some traction with that, then it's a whole nother conversation. But if that hasn't happened, we're talking about this woo-woo thing that may or may not be real to your perspective, and I get that. Don't do anything you don't want to do. Do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you to think or believe or do anything.
And again, just how I keep banging on about this in different shows and in this one, but okay, so how? So okay, so we quieten the mind down, for example.
Sure.
How do we know that something is speaking to us that is wanting what's best for us, but also is really what we want to do?
That's a real good point. Kevin, I'm hearing you. You've brought up this point with other guests, and you're wanting a clean resolution about this. I get that. Now, I would suggest the Post-it notes because that's so super simple. And I get that there's a lot of people that have no clue what their life purpose is, and I get that too. And if you don't have it in your psyche what you're here to do, it's kind of tough to weed out all the narrative in your head and tune into that. But what the Post-it notes will do is over time, you're going to see a new thread, a new dynamic show up. There's something very powerful about that one sentence starts, let's write a book. And I write down, write a book. And the next morning I get up and I look and it says, oh, write a book. And then I go a little bit farther. It says, write a book about your journey. Write a book about my journey. Okay. And a month later, I've got 8, 10, 12 Post-it notes and I'm starting to see a thread. And the last thing you said is, why would we even want to do it or something like that? I resisted immensely. I didn't want to do it. My ego said, I'm not writing an effing book. Nobody wants to hear from a small town kid. It's not part of what I want to do. And that's why it took 6 years to write the first book. I write a book in 6 months now. I can't type fast enough. I have this content in my psyche, and I can't tell you how much joy I get when I write. And I wouldn't have experienced that had my ego kept saying, no, no, no. And that's what Citizen King's about. Ego, just chill for a second and make some room in your psyche and just hold it and develop a relationship with it. Don't, as soon as it comes in, I don't like that. And for the rest of the time, you're swatting away these insights that can bring a new dynamic into your life. If that makes sense.
What if what you choose life purpose wise is like so different to what others may judge as being acceptable? Do you know what I mean?
That's a great point, because in the book I talk about dominion and sovereignty. Because your soul, I suggest in this dynamic, we're kind of going through the eye of the needle now. And when we come out of the other side, there's going to be a lot of new narratives that have never been heard in the history of humanity. So you're sitting there and your soul showing you this thing to do, and there's no example of it in the past. in Citizen King, I talk about dominion and sovereignty. Do you know that the people who built the arsenal of nuclear weapons to blow the entire flipping world up didn't ask anybody if it was okay? They just did it. So if we're going to come out and create a positive effect in humanity, do we need a permission slip? No. We have the dominion, we have the sovereignty within our own being to be the vehicle of change for humanity. That's how it's always happened since the beginning of time.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And just remind us, I mean, this has been coming up on the screen, but just for the audio podcast as well, what is the URL for your radio show, and how often is your radio show broadcast?
It's every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain. You can learn about the radio show at newhumanliving.com and click on the radio tab. Right now, today, there's hundreds of free interviews that you can call up on your phone while you're driving to work. Or we've talked about quantum, consciousness, PhD, psychiatrist, shaman, every aspect of what might reflect a deeper understanding of this human vehicle.
Yeah. So what would it look like from an outside perspective for someone's if we were to look at someone's life? I mean, this is very generic, I guess it has to be, right? But if someone's living their purpose and they're in that space, what does that look like?
Well, they're not knocked off course by what other people think. They're not.
That's a good point.
They don't go into emotional reaction for more than a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't dwell on emotions for a long period of time. They're focused on 2 or 3 prime objectives in their life. I mean, in other words, if you walked up to them and said, "Why are you working on it?" "Well, I'm writing a book, and I've got I'm going to expand my radio show." They're actively engaged in bringing something into effect.
Right.
For example, and they tend to be comfortable in their own skin. There's this sense of, boy, this really feels right. This really feels
like a leader in a sense.
Like I belong here. And so they have a sense of comfort, a sense of peace in their own psyche, if that makes sense.
Yeah it does. That does. And I guess it depends what's important to you as well.
Well, it was important to me from my ego's perspective that I not write books. So when you say that it's important to me, sometimes I can have a deranged sense of importance, and it's actually a scapegoat tactic to keep me out of actually doing what would really bring.
What about everything that you're talking about, Les, and keeping this in balance with life as well? So obviously you've got a past, you've got a family, you've got a past, like we all have. You've got how do you keep this, what we're discussing here, and we have been discussing for over 50 minutes right now, in balance with not walking away from what others may say, well, that's important. You want to. You're not walking away from anything, are you? In a sense, I mean, you're not. You're still living a normal life, aren't you? In the background, I mean, how do you balance that as well?
If your friends, if your habit was to get together after work and have drinks and bitch and moan about how bad life was, you're not going to be going to those much anymore. In other words, the relationship you have with people before and after does change. It does shift. Of course, and it can even happen within a relationship.
Well, this is where I'm going. Got to go there.
Go ahead. Go.
No. This is where I want to go as well. Yeah.
Sure.
So in your case, in your life.
Well, sure. Let's put some skin in the game. I divorced. I had kids. We were married 18 years, and I said enough is enough. And why did I do that? Because I realized that whenever I'd have a big idea, big vision of my life, I would get shut down. It's like, we don't have time for that. That's fool's play. That you're daydreaming. Come on, get back to earth. And I'm like, I'm really feeling this as, and there were other components too. You don't get to that point over
God,
a
no.
single thing,
No.
but it changed my relationship with my whole family, with my kids, with my ex, and the best thing I can do I'll take my kids' perspectives. All my kids are grown up and on their own, but I'm doing this for myself, but I think it's also a gift for them. And
Okay, so
what I'm doing,
keep going, keep
what
going.
I'm doing is living in my heart. I'm living from the wisdom of my heart, and I'm making choices. They scratch their head and go, "What the hell is Dad even thinking? He's fallen off his rocker." But I'm staying in my heart, and I think over time they may or may not. It's not my choice whether they get it or not. I'm not here
Okay,
to force feed anything.
I hear you, Les. So are you saying that relationship with your kids right now is not there?
Oh, it is. It's quite there.
Okay.
And but there's a whole realm of stuff that I believe that if I talk about, they'll roll their eyes.
Okay,
And
so you've got
and
your
so
relationship. So you've got relationships with their kids as well. With
you bet.
yeah, okay. But if you bring this subject up at Christmas or Thanksgiving or
I won't.
yeah, you don't because there's the front door. Yeah, okay. Or at least let's not talk about that. So, but you feel that but so yeah. So you got 2 feet. You got 1 foot in both worlds in some respects.
I don't see it that way. I'm living in my heart, and they like Dad when I'm helping them fix the faucet, and we're going to the batting cage, and we're walking the dog, and I love all those things. So
Yeah, they're
it's not
important.
like
They're important.
I'm not contorting myself.
No, no,
I'm
no,
like,
no.
hey, let's go for a walk. Okay, cool.
That's nice.
I'm not.
Yeah,
It's not like 2 feet. I
yeah,
don't fragment myself.
yeah, yeah.
And I love them. They're starting to not figure out why Dad loves them no matter what they choose. And it's like, well, aren't you going to be upset? The choice is yours. I'm not going to be upset. Choose whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that empowers them, and they're not used to that. And
Yeah.
does that make sense?
You know, absolutely it does. And even in your life, there's this world of the divide of in a sense of like, you're coming from this space, yet those that you love and that are very close around you are coming from a completely different space. That same sort of divide I was
Sure.
talking about earlier on, when it's just people
Yeah.
that you're passing in the streets and you have no, particular, close relationship with. But
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I treat both the person in the street and my children the same
of
way.
course.
You're
Yeah,
empowered to make any choice you want.
yeah.
Live your life any way you want.
Yeah,
And
but where are we moving with the world in a grander space like that? I mean, we talk.
well, that's up to us. That's up to us. What are we going to choose?
Yeah, but if there's
We
always
can.
if there's always that divide there between those who will come from a different space, which is fine as well, because no one's trying to like this ain't a cult, right? Yeah.
Well, some of it's sustainable and some of it's not. There's force like a military. A military takes an immense amount of energy, fuel, money, etc. So in David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force consumes energy. Egos consume consciousness. And so they're not sustainable if
Okay,
they go too far off in
makes
the
sense.
weeds.
Yep.
But Gandhi shows up and says, power. I'm not going to bring an army to fight your army. Here's
No,
this
that's right.
scrawny little lawyer.
Hmm.
And he says, I want peace. And the war machine pokes him and shoots some people. And he's like, I'm choosing peace. And the force couldn't sustain itself
No.
against the power.
So, but do you think that changed this idea of like coming from that space where there's a lot more thinking like this, where it's less of that power consumption, like you're saying, and more of just a natural flow, which would be this space that we're talking about. That change
Sure.
on this planet could be centuries from now, on a much grander kind of different scale. But I guess that's okay because it's well. why wouldn't it be okay? Well, I guess
it's our choice.
Yeah.
Every choice is okay. We have fierce freedom here. We have fierce freedom. We build out a nuclear arsenal, for God's sakes. We have fierce. So whether that takes a century, a millennium, I promise you, out of 7 billion people on the planet, there's people that don't want it to happen ever. And there's people that 100 years would be too soon. And there's people that want it to happen tomorrow. I mean, there's not a single narrative that defines humanity. There's 100,000 million narratives, and they're all different. And so to think that we're divided as a human race, I really don't see it. Certainly in some environments like social media, there's a bunch of street fighting going on. But I'm impressed over and over and over again. I went for a hike yesterday and I ran into complete strangers, and we're told humanity is at ease with itself. It really is.
Well, there's still a lot of shit going on. I mean, let's face it.
I understand that, but at our core,
but at the core, yes, which is,
what an interview! Way to stir it up. I love it.
Oh, do you know what? I think I prefer being conflicting, being aggressive, and coming across this way than I do normally, actually. And I'm so burnt out with my old style of doing my interviews, to be quite honest with you. And to everyone watching this, I've been going through a lot recently with immigration and everything else, and I don't think I could keep my old interview style going much longer. Anyway, I'd be bored of it. I've done enough of these interviews where it's just, for me nowadays, it's just gone beyond that stage of, oh, come on, come and talk and tell us your truth, and I'll just sit here and say yes, well, that's great. Next question. Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? That's just fucking fantastic. Yeah. No.
Way to bring it. I'm glad to participate in this.
I appreciate you putting up with my shit. I swear to God, right? But I think it's sometimes with conversations like this that you can just,
Amen.
Other people are going through the same frustrations as well. It's not just me. I'm just a representative of others that will even be on this path in way beyond years of me being on this planet. Do you know what I mean? And yourself, and maybe this will just be a slight contribution to their path as well.
Amen.
But maybe as well, maybe all that we've spoken about, when we do to understand what this really is truly about, we can't bring it back with us. When we leave this body, there is no way to tell anyone what we went to or any of what this was really about. And we have to be honest with ourselves. And maybe what we're talking about right now and what the potential of what we think it is actually not what it is. It's so much different to even our conceptualization of what it really was. But this is a stepping stone at this particular point in evolution of where we're at, or what we think it is.
Oh my God, from my perspective, I've only been on the planet 60 years. We're at a pivot point. I have never seen such dynamics in the human narrative. I think business as usual is gone.
I think so. Yeah.
And we're really at a void where there's no static structures built up in any new paradigms.
No.
I mean, there's beginnings of it. And this is an excellent time to make corrections and build out something that's compatible with nature, compatible with Earth, compatible with what we would prefer.
It's crazy. Even some companies that I speak to right now, because they've been off, with the pandemic, they've been working remotely, trying to get people back into the office. They can't even find the staff right now because a lot of the old people have left. They're just not there anymore, or they've died, unfortunately. It's a weird time in so many ways, and it's definitely a time of new thinking. But my point was originally in that question, and I'm looking at time right now, and I know we're well over time, is that what if all this stuff that we've discussed here and whacked each other over the head with, right, actually it's nothing to do with it. It ain't that. What if me and you have got it completely wrong, and others following this, and actually what this nature of reality is fucking way beyond what we can even understand. This is way beyond, way beyond what we're saying it is. Like we're.
Well, Okay, so you're saying that if all the everything we've talked about here is hogwash, and are we contributing to the demise? Well, we've had nothing but demise for thousands of years. We're going to have to explore new thinking if we want
Yeah,
a new paradigm.
I'm
So
all up for that.
I I think it's good to challenge everything that we hold to be some kind of a sacred thing,
Yeah.
and it. I don't mind being challenged at all,
I,
and I
um,
I want to challenge my narrative over and over and over
yeah.
again because
I,
I think being complacent is a easy way to live.
so, okay. And your website, Les, it's been coming up on the screen. Your website is?
Newhumanliving.com. And if you want to learn more about me, lesjensen.com.
Yes, and there's a lot on your website as well. And again, I'll link the previous interview, which was very different to this one. I hope it was, right? I promise it probably is, right? So yes, that's below as well. And until the next time, Les. So just thank you
Thank
very, very
you.
much.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.